go there? Shout yes. It says the next day. Somebody say the next day. After what happened yesterday? Well, yesterday Jesus fed 5,000 men. Back then they only counted men, so it is estimated by some scholars that there may have been 25,000 people at this thing. And that's how many people he fed with a little lunch. And you know the story. Everybody knows the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000. This, what I'm about to preach to you, though, kind of reminds me of Jesus when he healed the 10 lepers. And how many lepers came back to him? Just one. And so I want to iterate this story to you. This is what is happening the next day. Somebody say the next day. So what happens is Jesus feeds all these people, these 25,000 men, women, children, and all in between. And after he feeds them, he puts his disciples in a boat and he says, go across to the other side. We've got more to do. But Jesus stayed. You remember the story? He stayed. And so he stays, and people in town noticed that he stayed. And he says the next day, the crowd that stood on the other side of the sea saw that there was no small boat except one that Jesus had not entered, but that his disciples had gone away alone. And they came there, said there came other small boats from Tiberias near to the place where they ate the bread after the Lord had given thanks. So when the crowd saw that Jesus was not there, nor his disciples, they got into small boats and came to Capernaum seeking after him. And when they found him on the other side of the sea, they said, Rabbi, when did you get here? When did you get here? Y'all have no idea where I'm going, and I'm glad for it. I can tell that many of you have overread this too. I love picking out small things in Scripture that many of us have overread. And last week I read it, and it was just like, oh, wow, I never read it that way. I want to give it to you the way that I read it. Can I go there? These people had just been fed by Jesus miraculously, and they were so enamored by it. This was, for many of them, their first encounter with Jesus. Somebody say it was their first encounter. Very important that you understand that. This was their initial meeting with Jesus. The first time they ever encountered him, he fed them. And so their complex of Jesus is Jesus feeding them at this place. This is where they had their first experience with Jesus. They have no other complex for who Jesus is other than he fed me one time at this place he was ministering at. And that's all they know about him. And so what do they do when they want more of him? They try to go back to the same place that he was yesterday. Perhaps maybe hoping to have the same experience and duplicate something that they've already seen, because they don't know anything else. They don't have a grid for anything else other than he fed me here. And so if he fed me here, he's probably going to be here tomorrow. And so they come back to the place where they had their original encounter. And they find something interesting. They find that he's no longer there. They find that he has moved on to something new. They find that he's moved on to the next city. They find that his assignment has continued. In other words, his assignment did not stay stationary at one experience. His assignment went to the next place. And so when they got to this place of, this is where I had my first encounter, so this is what it should always look like. And so they stumble upon this place where he feeds them, and they get there and they're like, where'd he go? And I want to tell you by the Spirit, you can laugh if you want, but I want to tell you this by the Spirit, that much of the church looks like this. And they're trying to find where Jesus is, but they're stuck in what happened to them 15 years ago. And they're bending over backwards trying to duplicate Some of you are bending over backwards trying to duplicate what he did when you were 15. And I don't understand, because when I got saved, they were singing "I'll Fly Away," and when I got saved, they didn't have all these lights. When I got saved, it didn't look like this. All they knew about Jesus was yesterday. I said that should have hit your spirit. All they knew about Jesus was yesterday. All they knew about him, Pastor, was he used to do it like this. All they know about him was he used to hold up little baskets of food and bless them and feed 25,000 people. I didn't know he could do anything. I didn't know he could do it different. I didn't know God could move differently than the little shotgun church I grew up in with 50 people and little wooden pews and a little piano with a... Some people think the four beasts in the kingdom is a Southern Gospel Quartet. And while you're standing in the same place you experienced him 15 years ago, he's moving on to something different. He's moving on to something new. Not that the old way is bad. It's not bad. You got saved under it. It's not bad. It just might not be fruitful for today. You see, the message of the gospel does not have to change, though the method can shift based on who's being ministered to. But we don't have to change the message. But I want you to know that the method is ever changing. And some of you are still caught in feeding the 5,000, and Jesus has already walked across the water to the other city, to the next place, to the next assignment, to the next family, to the next move of God. And in this moment, these people had a decision. They said, I can either stay right here and reminisce. Well, he's not here, but I remember when he used to be here. And I haven't heard him speak in a long time, but I remember when he used to. And so you use your past experience as validation for your salvation. I said you're using your past experience as validation for your salvation. You're not saved because he fed you with bread and fish. Oh, I know it's hard. Can I continue? And you're stuck stationary right here, and you really don't know what to do. You're at a standstill. You don't have a grid for it. You've never seen anything like it before. And the phenomenon of unfamiliarity will push you to either sit crisscross and remember things, or it'll do what these people did. It will cause you, it will push you into... When the crowd saw that Jesus was no longer there, nor his disciples... No, you need to hear that. I know it's a real small phrase. You probably overheard it. Not only was Jesus the person not there, his real followers weren't either. I said anyone that had any association with Jesus was no longer there. And so when these people saw that Jesus was no longer there, they have two choices. They can either get in little huddles and talk about it, and talk about how he used to be there, or, somebody say or they themselves got into little boats and they came to Capernaum seeking Jesus. And when they found him, they said, "When did you get here?" So you've got a choice in this moment. You can go sit in your memories that will not sustain you. Or you can grab some people by the hand, put them in a boat, and go find Jesus with them. And I realize it's a very simple message, and I really don't want you to miss it and feel like you're good. Because in this society, we use anything to validate our salvation. Well, I cried, so I felt him, and so therefore I'm saved. Well, I came to church on a Monday night, and so therefore I'm saved. Well, I've got a scripture in my description on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and so therefore I'm saved. Well, I listen to Christian music, and so therefore I'm saved. Well, my parents are saved, and so therefore I'm good. No! We have all these measuring sticks for salvation, and none of them are valid in the kingdom, and I'm worried about you. I'm concerned that some of you think you're saved because you were at the place where Jesus fed you. I said, I'm scared some of you think you're saved because Jesus fed you fish and chips. Try asking these people that are stuck over there if they're saved. You know what they'll tell you? Oh, I know him. Oh, I know him. I go to church every Sunday. Oh, I know him. Oh, I know him. I listen to the good music. Oh, I know him. I know him because one time when I was 7, I repeated this prayer after this preacher. And he told me if I really meant it, I was saved. Friends, I'm worried about the American church. And I'm worried about the American church for junk like that. We are so dictated by our emotions that we think that our salvation is in an emotional experience. And it scares me. No, you're not hearing me. We think we're validated because we came to the altar and we cried. That's not salvation. That's an experience, which is good. I'm not knocking experience. Experience is good. It is the catalyst for salvation. It is the springboard to get you to do this thing that nobody wants to do. You want to have the blessings of the fish and the chips, but then you don't want to get up off your mat and follow him to the next place. I say this out of nothing but concern that you think you're saved because you had this experience with him where he made you feel peaceful, and I'm glad he does that. Experience is good, but it's not the one-all, end-all. There's a walking it out that must take place, and it's missing. No, it's really missing.